Today, we are going to discuss a case in which there was a differential diagnosis problem. We will be discussing varicose hyperplasia versus varicose carcinoma. 76-year-old male presented with long history of tobacco chewing and was a known case of varicose carcinoma of lip diagnosed 5 years back. Presently, he presented with a large exophytic mass attached to the left lateral border of tongue detected only 2 days back. Mass was non-tender and asymptomatic and measured 2.2 cm in diameter and had varicose surface. Incisional biopsy was carried out for histopathological diagnosis. H&E stained slides were examined by 6 independent senior surgical pathologists. Here is the patient with a mass attached to the left lateral border of the tongue. This is the mass and this is the tongue. On histopathological examination, the findings depicted in the pictures going to be showed predominantly the following findings. There was broad varicosity of the surface covered with thick layer of parakeratin and marked acanthosis. Endophytic growth of broad retiridges closely packed together in the subepithelial connective tissue. Epithelium and retiridges made up of large cells with pale cytoplasm and minimal cellular atypia, particularly in the center. Some of the groups showed central keratinization. Peripheral layers of the retiridges showed mild to moderate atypia with few mitotic figures. Stroma underneath the retiridges showed moderate degree of lymphoplasmacytic infiltration. Here is the scanner view of the growth. We can see that this is a exophytic varicose growth here covered with parakeratin here, and then there is growth inside into the form of broad retiridges which are closely packed and they are occupying the subepithelial tissue. We can see at this magnification that the retiridges are containing large pale cells, particularly in the center. If we see the surface is covered with parakeratin. Here we have the surface epithelium where mild atypia is present, especially towards the basal cell layer. Other areas show large, broad retiridges in the subepithelial connective tissue, and these are made up of pale squamous cells. Here we see central keratinization in one of the retiridges. Again here we see retiridges into the subepithelial stroma, another retiridge here going little deeper, central keratinization, large cells, mild atypia at the periphery of the retiridges. Another view showing lymphoplasmacytic infiltrate surrounding the retiridges, mild atypia here. 2 out of the 6 pathologists who had a look at these slides gave the diagnosis of benign lesion. One of them labeled the lesion as varicose hyperplasia, while the other pathologist described the changes and said the tissue did not show any evidence of varicose or squamous cell carcinoma. While 4 pathologists gave independent diagnosis of varicose carcinoma, with 2 pathologists made additional comments that early changes of varicose-squamous carcinoma cannot be ruled out. Now, this divergence of opinion led to dilemma of treatment in this case as underlined underneath. If the diagnosis is concerned as benign varicose hyperplasia, treatment will be limited to the excision of the mass. However, if diagnosis is considered as varicose carcinoma, then treatment is more radical with hemiglossectomy and neck dissection or sentinel node dissection. This dilemma has prompted us to address this problem of diagnosis and differentiation of varicose hyperplasia and varicose carcinoma. Varicose hyperplasia and varicose carcinoma both are two distinct clinico-pathological verrucous lesions of oral cavity. However, the distinction between these two lesions remains enigmatic. It is almost impossible to distinguish them clinically. Thus, the final diagnosis rests on the histopathological characteristics of both lesions. Verrucous hyperplasia is a pre-malignant exophytic oral mucosal lesion with a predominantly verrucous or papillary surface. This lesion can subsequently transform into verrucous carcinoma, which is a well-established warty variant of squamous cell carcinoma. Also, these lesions have been found to be juxtaposed with verrucous carcinoma and squamous cell carcinoma in a significant percentage of patients. Tobacco chewing is predominant habit in varicose carcinoma as well as varicose hyperplasia. Varicose hyperplasia patients show younger age group of 30 to 60 years, while the mean age of patients with varicose carcinoma is significantly older, that is, they are above 50 years of age. Mean tumor size of varicose carcinoma lesions is significantly larger than that of varicose hyperplasia lesions. However, it is difficult to differentiate varicose hyperplasia and varicose carcinoma on clinical grounds alone. Clinically, two patterns are observed in varicose hyperplasia, namely sharp and blunt. The sharp variety comprises long, narrow, heavily keratinized varicose processes. The second variety is the blunt variety, and it exhibits varicose processes that are broader and flatter and not heavily keratinized. Here we have example of sharp variety of varicose hyperplasia. We can see that thin, long varicose processes heavily keratinized are present in this lesion. On the other hand, we have broad variety in which the varicose processes are broad and short and are covered only by thin layer of keratin. Wang et al. Classified varicose hyperplasia into plaque type and mass type lesions and identified significant differences in their malignant transformation rates. Plaque type of varicose hyperplasia was defined by them as horizontally proliferating epithelial hyperplasia resulting in an elevated plaque-like lesion with a varicose surface. Mass-like varicose hyperplasia lesions displayed single or multiple protuberant masses of epithelial hyperplasia with very little connective tissue at the core and a varicose surface. Here we have example of mass-like lesion of varicose hyperplasia. We can see there is a big mass-like area made up of keratin and markedly hyperplastic epithelium. We see the retiridges which are curved, slightly broad, but they do not go deep into the submucosa. For correct evaluation of varicose hyperplasia versus varicose carcinoma, an adequate biopsy sample is of utmost importance along with an interaction between the clinician and the pathologist. It may take an average of 3 to 4 biopsies before a correct diagnosis of varicose hyperplasia or varicose carcinoma can be made. Nevertheless, differential diagnosis of these varicose lesions remains an enigma for the histopathologists, either because of the lack of adjacent normal epithelium when a biopsy is performed or because of improper orientation of the specimen. Now this line is very important. Adjacent normal epithelium. The varicose hyperplasia, the main lesion lies above the line of normal epithelium, while varicose carcinoma, it goes deep into the submucosa much below the line of normal epithelium. Shear and Pinbock described the histopathological differences to differentiate between these two varicose lesions. They are distinguished from each other by an exophytic and endophytic growth pattern in varicose hyperplasia and varicose carcinoma respectively. Means that varicose hyperplasia will have an exophytic growth pattern while varicose carcinoma will have an endophytic growth pattern. The hyperplastic epithelium is superficial to adjacent normal epithelium in varicose hyperplasia. However, in varicose carcinoma, there is a pushing border invasion of the hyperplastic epithelium into the underlying connective tissue, and that is what we saw in the present case, that the retiridges, they were broad and going deep into the subepithelial connective tissue. Histological criteria employed for the diagnosis of oral varicose hyperplasia are epithelial hyperplasia with keratosis or hyperkeratosis and varicose surface, no invasion of hyperplastic epithelium into lamina propria compared with the adjacent normal mucosal epithelium. This is the most important and differentiating feature between the two entities. The retiridges may have broad elephant's foot shape, but they are at the same level as that of adjoining normal epithelium. Dense and diffuse chronic inflammation cell infiltration is present in the lamina propria in most cases of varicose hyperplasia as well as varicose carcinoma and does not help in differentiation between the two. Dysplastic changes of variable degree are seen in both, so they also do not help in differentiation. So the main feature which helps in the differentiation is growth of the retiridges under the adjoining normal epithelium in varicose carcinoma. Histopathologically, the sharp variety of varicose hyperplasia shows long and narrow varicose projections which are heavily keratinized predominantly by orthokeratin, as we have seen. Shorter and broader exophytic projections in the blent variety are not heavily keratinized and show parakeratin mostly. In most of the cases, epithelial hyperplasia is observed as an increase in the thickness of stratum spinosum. When the thickness of epithelium is normal but shows varicose projections, it is reported as varicose hyperplasia. So, the thickening of the epithelium is not necessary for the diagnosis of varicose hyperplasia. In the majority of varicose hyperplasia cases, retiridges are broad and blunt, resembling elephant foot, but do not show endophytic growth into the underlying stroma. Epithelial dysplasia is a prominent feature in varicose hyperplasia and is graded ranging between mild and severe. Histological criteria for the diagnosis of oral verrucous carcinoma include epithelial overgrowth with wide and elongated ratty ridges exhibiting a pushing border invasion into the underlying connective tissue, papillary or verruciform epithelial projections with abundant parakeratin production, and the lesional epithelial cells showing a normal maturation pattern with no significant degree of cellular atypia. Keratin plugging in the center of epithelial invaginations is the histological hallmark of verrucous carcinoma. However, Sludweg et al. Reported that presence of keratin plugging is not obligatory for diagnosis of verrucous carcinoma. Although dysplasia is infrequently seen in verrucous carcinoma, mitotic figures are more common. Differential diagnosis of verrucous carcinoma, in that we include papillary squamous cell carcinoma, which is a variant of conventional squamous cell carcinoma, and it can be confused with verrucous carcinoma histologically. Verrucous carcinoma can be distinguished by its intact basement membrane, which contrasts with focal or early invasion seen in papillary squamous cell carcinoma. Furthermore, the epithelium in papillary squamous cell carcinoma cases is significantly dysplastic when compared with the almost bland cytological features of epithelium of verrucous carcinoma lesions. Here we have a typical case of verrucous carcinoma with pale large cells and central foci of keratinization, broad ratty ridges. On the other hand, we have a case of papillary carcinoma showing high-grade abnormal features of the cells, atypia, anisonucleosis, high-grade nuclear changes, invasion of the papillary pore by the tumor. So the picture of the two, the cytological picture of the two is very, very different. What is the clinical importance of verrucous carcinoma? It is postulated that the existence of verrucous carcinoma must be considered to be an expression of an ubiquitous pre-malignant change in the whole oral mucous membrane. This fact is responsible for recurrence of malignancies involving any part of the oral cavity. Treatment modality of verrucous carcinoma. In terms of treatment modality, surgery alone is the most common method of management of verrucous carcinoma cases as well as for verrucous hyperplasia. However, it is important to ensure wide surgical margin of excision for the lesion with adequate soft tissue margins in verrucous carcinoma cases so as to avoid recurrence. Although sporadic cases of cervical and distant metastasis have been reported, the overall rate of metastasis is insignificant in verrucous carcinoma. An incorrect histological diagnosis or presence of occult foci indicating conventional squamous cell carcinoma has been proposed to justify the metastatic nature of the lesions which otherwise show characteristic features of verrucous carcinoma. Therefore, thorough sampling of the surgical specimens is highly recommended. Take home message from this presentation. It is imperative that pathologists take due caution to avoid underreporting as well as overreporting. One should use strict criteria for differentiation of verrucous hyperplasia and verrucous carcinoma, especially exophytic versus endophytic growth. Underreporting gives a sense of complacency to the patient as well as to the clinician, so the treatment is delayed and adequate treatment is not instituted. This results in recurrences, risk of metastasis, and increased morbidity and mortality in the long run. Overreporting leads to unnecessary overtreatment with radical surgery and neck dissection, thus increasing morbidity. Both underreporting as well as overreporting result in loss of confidence of clinician in the diagnostic capabilities of the pathologist. It also increases risk of medico-legal suit by the patient, causing emotional as well as financial problems to the reporting pathologist. Our welfare is in our hands. Be cautious. Update yourself with new classification, diagnostic criteria, and other advances in the field. Thank you very much.